Libya comes in from the cold as Colonel Gaddafi holds talks with Tony Blair. The historic handshake, which signals that Libya's 30 years of isolation are over. We'll be assessing the potential benefits and risks of Mr. Blair's visit to Tripoli. Also tonight, dozens arrested in the hunt for Britain's biggest gangmasters. The Olympic torch has started its 4-month journey around the world. And Celtic tonight celebrate a victory over mighty Barcelona.
And here in Scotland, we can't take any more. A warning from Scotland's fishermen as the government proposed more cuts to the fleet. And Celtic's teenage goalkeeper celebrates after a heroic performance in Barcelona.
Good evening. Tony Blair has become the first British Prime Minister to visit Libya since Winston Churchill 60 years ago. Mr. Blair shook hands with the Libyan leader, Colonel Gaddafi, signalling to the world that Libya's long years of isolation are over. The main benefit, according to the Prime Minister, is that Libya is now ready to help fight the forces of terrorism. Colonel Gaddafi has renounced weapons of mass destruction, and he's declared that his days of sponsoring terrorists are over. Our political editor, Andrew Marr, was travelling with Mr. Blair.
Touchdown. The war against terrorism has taken Tony Blair to some pretty strange places, but nowhere perhaps as strange as Tripoli, the drab and weary-looking capital of a country seen until recently as the hub of world subversion and terrorism. And the road ended here. A few scattered tents amid some anonymous green fields guarded by mounted soldiers. This is a place known in Libya simply as The Place. It's the lair of a man until now regarded as an outcast, past friend of the IRA, the godfather of the Lockerbie massacre, Colonel Gaddafi himself.
Very much indeed. Good to see you.
Some people will find what's going on behind me in that tent deeply offensive. The first meeting between a British Prime Minister and Colonel Gaddafi, once memorably described as the mad dog of the Middle East. But this is also an important moment in the world fight against terrorism, the moment when Libya has finally been taken back into the world community. No formal Arab kiss, just a stiff handshake followed by some stilted jokes about how tired Tony Blair was looking. There were brief scuffles as the British journalists proved a little bit harder to herd than local camels. And then the two of them got down to the hard business of contracts and intelligence deals, speaking together for well over an hour before ambling past those camels and some dishevelled-looking soldiers for lunch and more talks. Mr. Gaddafi told Tony Blair that his turn away from terrorism was irrevocable. After that, the Prime Minister told a press conference that although the past could never be altered, he believed that the Libyan leader had genuinely changed.
In reaching out the hand of partnership today, we do not forget the past. But we do try, in the light of the genuine changes happening, to move beyond it.
But he seemed uncharacteristically subdued. Prime Minister, sitting down with Colonel Gaddafi must count as one of the oddest things you've done in your Prime Ministership. Did you feel at all queasy about what's happened today?
Yeah, it was strange, given the history, to come here and do this. And of course, I am conscious of the pain that people who have suffered as a result of terrorist actions in the past must feel. But the world is changing. That if a country is prepared to say, we want to put the past behind us, we want to give up chemical and nuclear weapons capability, we want to cease our ties with terrorist groups, then we should be willing to open up to that.
This visit will have angered and depressed some people at home, but in Mr. Blair's view, there are good terrorists, the penitent ones. Andrew Marr, BBC News, travelling with the Prime Minister.
As Andrew was saying, Mr. Blair underlined that the main benefit from today's talks would be increased cooperation in the war against terrorism, but there are other potential benefits too. Business deals already unveiled show the way ahead, but they're not without risk. Here's James Robbins with this assessment.
A year is a very long time in world politics. Within a few months, Libya has been transformed from the status of pariah to partner. Why? Well, go back 18 years and America was bombing the Libyan capital Tripoli in air raids from bases in Britain, hoping to kill Colonel Gaddafi as a godfather of terrorism. His daughter was among the victims. Military and civilian targets were hit. Today, one more indication of the completely changed world. Detectives from London looking for the killer of policewoman Yvonne Fletcher outside the Libyan embassy in the 1980s will go to Libya next week on the promise of greater cooperation.
This come about because of the breakthrough with the Libyan authorities and Colonel Gaddafi in particular. We've always continued with the investigation, and this is a very important development indeed, and we'd like to see some conclusion to an offence which was an outrageous murder.
But it's the really big picture which explains today's events. This was Libya a few months ago, bristling with secret plants, developing deadly unconventional weapons, chemical, biological, and particularly nuclear. London and Washington are satisfied they're all being shut down now. And there are big financial benefits for both sides in today's new partnership. Oil fields with decaying low-tech equipment will now be rebuilt. Dozens of British companies are lining up for work. And already today, Shell has finalised a huge deal to open up offshore natural gas fields. And Scotland, despite Lockerbie, has 24 companies in Libya now looking for new business.
And the feedback there has been very, very good. We're getting a lot of support from the Libyan authorities, from the British Embassy, from the Libyan Chamber of Commerce, and many of our contacts out there, so it's very good.
So, is there a downside? No question, some, not all, the families of Libya's victims are unhappy, and there are political risks for Tony Blair if Colonel Gaddafi doesn't stick to his new path. The Conservatives will be watching for any slip.
I think it was a mistake for Mr. Blair to go to Libya personally, straight from the Madrid Memorial Service, and hand Colonel Gaddafi